The seventh generation, the gaming era of the PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii, was not kind to Japanese developers. The managerial monarchy of the gaming industry since the 80s. A lot of gaming trends pushed against Japanese game philosophy, ushering in the era of cinematic movie-like experiences, and as Japanese studios began to lose prominence in the gaming space, they began to change their games in ways they felt would be more palatable to Western audiences. Some franchises, like the Yakuza series, suffered from this change, becoming nearly unmarketable in the 7th gen gaming landscape. Yakuza 3 followed the release cadence of the first two games, however, releasing a year later in the West after its original Japanese launch. It was only with Yakuza 4 that the franchise would disappear from the West, until the massive Japanese gaming comeback during the 8th generation. The 7th generation is nearly my least favorite in gaming history, edging slightly over the 1st and 2nd generations. That era from 2006 to 2013 just didn't suit my personal tastes for games, and as I played Yakuza 3, a lot of things I didn't like about that era of gaming came to the forefront. As such, I didn't care for Yakuza 3 that much, but whenever I review a game, I like to focus on the positive as much as I can. I don't always manage to maintain my positive outlook, which you can see in my Sea of Stars review, but even though I didn't like most of what Yakuza 3 had to offer, there was one thing that I did like. Yakuza 3 does one thing exceptionally well, and that's the way it makes connections to real-world issues via its incorporation of capitalist corruption and the CIA, and the way I was able to make a personal connection to one of the characters, Saki. You're watching Rayl Deal Games, and in this Rayl Deal review, I'll be discussing these elements of Yakuza 3 and why I like them. I can't talk about these two things without spoiling aspects of this game's story, so this is your massive spoiler warning for all major story elements in Yakuza 3. Click away now if you don't want anything spoiled. In addition to discussing capitalism, the CIA, and Saki, I'll diverge into authentic negativity briefly to discuss the aspects of Yakuza 3's gameplay I really didn't like. With all of that established, let's get the negative out of the way by diving right into the gameplay. Part of why Yakuza 3's gameplay didn't work for me in the same way the previous three games did is down to the culture shock I faced moving from the remakes of the first two games to a combat system more in line with the PS2 originals. I've never actually played the original versions of Yakuza 1 and 2, so this is partly conjecture on my part though. Of the three games I played so far, 0, Kiwami, and Kiwami 2, Kiwami had the worst gameplay, but in comparison to Yakuza 3, Kiwami is miles better. I noticed right from the beginning how clunky Yakuza 3 feels because of the odd way Kiryu moves in this game. Kiryu moves similar to the way the player character in Dark Souls 2 moves, a game well known for its clunky and awkward movement. Now this isn't as big a problem in Yakuza 3 as DS2 because movement doesn't need to be as precise in this game, but that doesn't make it feel any less odd. As for the fighting itself, Kiryu is once again left with only one fighting style, and this still feels extremely similar to the brawler style from 0 and Kiwami. The moment-to-moment gameplay is very much like a weaker version of Kiwami, and just like Kiwami, Yakuza 3 has one consistently annoying element in the opponent's toolkit. In Kiwami, enemies consistently use knockdown effects that consistently harm the gameplay. In Yakuza 3, the enemies block all the damn time. I swear, it felt like most times I only got 1 or 2 hits in before the opponent would block the rest of my combo. And I never unlocked any abilities to break through enemies' guards. Finally, I don't like the progression system. In my Kiwami 2 review, I praised RGG for their inventive ways of remixing the progression system in each game, but the way they did so in Yakuza 3 makes it fit in perfectly with 7th gen gaming sensibilities. What I mean by that is RGG made the gameplay so streamlined there's little to no thought needed in choosing abilities. It is an interesting take on the classic God of War experience system, but that's really the only positive I noticed about it. With those negatives out of the way, let's focus back in on the aspects of the game I actually like. The two primary antagonists in Yakuza 3 are capitalism as expressed through Yoshitaka Mine and the CIA as shown through Andre Richardson. Yoshitaka Mine became so rich, winning the game of capitalism spectacularly. But what he found in his buckets of gold was a longing for purpose. He finds that meaning through Daigo and becomes a Yakuza, dedicating his life to the Tojo clan. When Daigo is shot at the command of the CIA, Mine makes a bid for the chairman's seat so that he can attain the same admiration Daigo did. In his climactic conflict with Kiryu, Mine learns he'll never gain the same status as Daigo no matter how much he tries because he lacks the understanding of where Daigo's power comes from. In the end, Mine, the traitor to the Tojo clan, saves Daigo's life by casting Richardson off the top of a building. I find the moment in this scene where Mine gets a call from his stockbroker most striking. His broker tells him of a deal to make more money than he'd ever seen. All he has to do is say the word quickly, but instead of acquiescing, he hangs out, feeling free for the first time since gaining his wealth. He becomes redeemed from his capitalist corruption. Money is important, and to a degree it buys happiness. Up to the point of having shelter, being able to eat, and having leisure time, money is able to buy a baseline degree of happiness. But past a certain level, it no longer does so, and it is instead the connections in life that bring happiness. This is what Mine discovered through Daigo, and is why I like this aspect of Yakuza 3's story. I also like the CIA infiltration too. It's no secret the CIA has been responsible for the destabilization of several other sovereign countries over the course of the 1900s and modern millennium. The Viet Cong, Taliban, and others are all products of CIA interference, and it is interesting seeing a foreign perspective on the CIA. In the modern US, this intelligence agency is often portrayed as the bad guys, and it's no surprise media from other nations reflect this antagonistic nature. No one likes a government agency reaching its hand into their business, especially if that agency is from a different country. Yakuza 3 is the first time I've seen the CIA ever show up in another nation's media. Both of these real-world connections being here is great, and I did enjoy the times they were explored. Making personal connections to media is something that has been a part of my life since I was extremely young, so I always enjoy aspects of games that are able to make me reflect upon my personal life. In Yakuza 3, the scene that did that for me was Saki's interaction with her mother and the mob boss Tetsuo Tamashiro. Saki is a child whose parents are not good. Her father gambled and drank often, and her mother partied and slept around. As such, Saki isn't set up for the happy life, but that changes when he kills himself. Saki is discovered holding his leg by Nakahara and Rikiya, and Nakahara takes her in as his adopted daughter. Eventually, Saki is kidnapped by Tamashiro, who is currently with Saki's mother. His reasoning for doing so was to gain a bargaining chip against Nakahara. He doesn't actually care for Saki or her mother. Saki's mother also doesn't care for her either, and at the end of Kiryu's conflict with Tamashiro, Saki chooses to go with Nakahara, leaving her mother behind forever. I made a personal connection with this whole interaction because of how my mother acted when I was younger. My mother always chose the men in her life over her children, prioritizing her social needs over the emotional ones of her kids. I grew up around a lot of parents who acted the same way, and as many of you out there likely know, it's a miserable situation for a child to survive through. I'm happy this particular event happened so early in Yakuza 3's runtime because it set the tone for my interest moving forward. Even though Saki doesn't show up often, and most of Yakuza 3's story wasn't particularly interesting to me, this scene had me hoping I would come across something as personally interesting by the time I rolled credits. If it weren't obvious from my intro, I did not enjoy Yakuza 3, and my time with this game has made me leery of jumping into Yakuza 4. I'm still going to play that game, but I'm not near as excited for it as I was for Yakuza 3 post Kiwami 2. As such, I do not recommend you all play Yakuza 3. It's really not worth the time for the story beats within the game's main critical path. As such, I would actually suggest you just watch a movie cut of all the cutscenes from the game, saving you the time on the horrid gameplay sections. My top 10 Yakuza characters update isn't too different this time around either, since none of the characters introduced in this game are going to make the list. This is what it looks like at this point in time. For those of you familiar with my reviews, I usually have a section at the end dedicated towards answering the question of whether the game I'm reviewing will make my top 100 of its respective release decade or not. But in Yakuza 3's case, there's no reason to include something like that. Originally released in 2009, in terms of of Japan's release date, Yakuza 3 absolutely does not compete with other games from the 2000s, meaning it absolutely had zero chance of hitting that list. And that's the video, my guys. What do you think of Yakuza 3? Is it really a hidden gem that I just didn't understand? Let me know in the comment section below, and while you're there, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell for more Rayl Deal gaming content, especially if you like these Rayl Deal reviews. The year of Yakuza is fully underway, and next month I'll be reviewing Yakuza 4. I hope you all join me for my review of that game. And if you have a moment right now, consider checking out some of my other videos on the screen. You might like other videos in my Year of Yakuza playlist. Regardless of what you choose to do, have an awesome day, gamers.